Good morning, my name is Chris Fox, and today we're going to learn how to play Battletech, big stompy mechs beating the crap out of each other. We'll talk about MechWarrior in another video if you're curious about that. So our scenario is a star of Clan Wolf mechs is grounding outside of a Lyran Commonwealth city. And the Lyran Commonwealth defenders are frantically scrambling to defend it. Fortunately, the way the clans work is they issue what's called a batch-all. They say, hey, listen, we want to know what you're defending the planet with, and then we're going to send something appropriately sized to that, even though we have a lot more. It's their nature, it's the way they do things, and they do it to minimize the impact of war. In this instance, the Lyran Commonwealth has selected 2 battle mechs they're going to send, and the clan has responded by sending one of their smaller mechs. So they have a 100-ton Daishi that they could send, a Dire Wolf, one of the most powerful clan Omni-mechs in existence. But in this instance, they think that would be overkill and they would definitely win. So they're scaling the odds back to give the enemy a chance. So they are sending in a single smaller mech to see whether or not the 2 Lyran Commonwealth mechs can take it out. And you're going to get to see through the course of the battle how the clans were able to so successfully invade the Inner Sphere and basically crush their opposition. They have better technology, they have more skilled pilots on average, so they have a lot of advantages, and the Inner Sphere tends to get ground down pretty quickly with their lower technology mechs. But the clans are arrogant and they tend to underbid, so sometimes they'll send just too few mechs, and the Inner Sphere's like, hey, come get some, we got mechs too. The idea here is we're only going to show the mechanics of combat, and we're only going to show the basic mechanics of combat. If you're a longtime Battletech player, you're going to say, but what about? Yes, we'll talk about that later, but we don't want to overwhelm new players with rules. We want to teach them just enough to get started so they can play and see how much fun that is. It's important to understand this sheet because you're going to see it a bunch. There's one for every mech. So we're going to go over in brief each of the areas, and then you can study it at your leisure. Over here, we've got the mech data. You can see the type of mech that it is, how fast it walks, and the most important 2 numbers for most people are running, which is how fast they're going to move at most of the time running, and then jumping. Now, these numbers are delivered in hexes. A hex is 2 inches, so my 8 hex move of running is 16 inches. Tonnage, 70 tons. The tech base is it clan, is it Inner Sphere, and what rules went into it? Is there something funky you need to know about? And then it's roll, which just gives you a snapshot of what it's generally used for. Sniper, stay at range, and snipe things. You can see all of its weaponry primarily is energy-based, with the exception of anti-missile systems and a machine gun for defending against infantry up close and for stopping missiles. So this thing's a nightmare if you're going against missile boats. It's going to blow up most of the missiles before they reach it, while it snipes over and over and destroys targets. The Thor is pretty brutal. And you can see why it has such a high build cost. So if you look at the Inner Sphere mechs, the 2 of them together are about the same as this build value, even though they have roughly double the tonnage because they have less technology. Over here, you can see how much armor it's got in different locations and what the internal structure looks like. If you blast through the armor, then you'll also blast into the internal structure. And once this goes away, the mech is destroyed. Also, whenever you hit internal structure, you roll for a critical. And over here is the critical charts, which we'll talk about more in depth later. The heat data chart we're not going to see used today, but you can see that it gets real bad real fast, so you want to stay under that heat total. And that's the whole chart. That's everything you're going to see on one of these mech sheets. If you spend a little time looking at it and understanding how hit locations work, you're pretty much ready to see today's match and play this game. The next thing that we're going to jump into is probabilities. As you can see, we're looking at a 2d6 probability chart. The most important column is the one on the end here. This is what you roll, and the colors are going to tell you what your goal should be. So when we are playing in any war game, this could be Warhammer 40k as well, it's all about I want to get my target number low, and I want to get your target number high. So if I can force you to take shots that are at an 8+ or ideally a 9+, you're going to miss most of the time. Whereas if I can make sure that I'm only taking shots when I've got a 6 or lower, I'm going to hit most of the time. And over the course of a battle, this is how you win. Okay, now that we've covered probabilities, we're going to jump into actual gameplay itself. The game has 4 different phases. The first phase is initiative. We'll actually roll initiative. It's 2d6 versus 2d6. It's very straightforward. High roll wins. And if you win initiative, it's very minor. You don't get a huge bonus like you would in Warhammer 40k or Warhammer Age of Sigmar, where I get to blow a third of your army off the map before they even get to go, and you never use those minis. In Battletech, everybody gets to fire. And that takes place simultaneously. So even if you headshot my mech, it'll still get to answer that turn, which I think is a better way to do things. Movement, you'll see every turn. I'll just keep showing you a close-up of how movement has gone each turn and sort of what the decisions were made therein, and then we'll do combat. Now, I'm only going to do the firing really kind of for the first round, where you'll see sort of this is how it works. You roll 2d6 for hit locations, and after that, it's just going probabilities, and I'm going to flash up the results of several rounds of combat so that you'll see these mechs grounding each other down. After combat, the last phase is heat. We're not going to be doing heat because these mech pilots are very skilled and they are managing their heat, meaning they're never going to fire more weapons than they should, and so they're always under their heat threshold. Every round you've got a certain amount of heat capacity that your mech can dissipate. If you stay under that, it all goes away. They could fire more weapons and go over that, but they're choosing not to do that, and every time the mechs are making good strategic choices there. I'm not recording the heat or showing buildup or wasting time on that phase because there's not a lot of reason to do that. We'll have future scenarios I'll show you where heat becomes a real issue, but even in this one, you're going to notice that once the mechs get hit and heat starts to build up more frequently, they're firing less weapons and they're moving a little bit differently. So it does change how you think. So we have to teach you how to roll to hit, and then we're going to show you some hit locations so you understand how to attack somebody in Battletech. So if I've got a PPC, a particle projection cannon, and I want to shoot somebody with it, how do I do that? Well, we're using something called the GATOR acronym. G is for gunnery. This is the base skill of your pilot. It starts at 4 and you can buy it down from there, but it does raise the point cost of your mech. And the stronger your mech, the more expensive it is to buy the pilot skill down. After your gunnery, you've got your attack modifier, that's the A, and this is two parts. The first is what you did, and the second is what your opponent did. So if you ran, that's going to be a +2, and if you ran really far, you may give your opponent a +3 to hit you, whereas if you didn't run very far, maybe they only have a +1. That number scales, and the combination of those two is the A. Then you get to T, which is terrain. So if you're able to get behind something, get some partial cover, or like a bluff, or a hill, or get into a forest, you're going to get some terrain cover, and that's going to really improve your chances of not getting shot. In the other category, you can see the clan has a -1. That's for a targeting computer because they have better technology. So that just lowers their overall target number by 1 as if they had a lower skill. They already have a lower skill, so that feels really unfair. And when you add those two things together, you end up with your opponent, if they're the inner sphere, having almost no chance to hit, and you as the clan having almost a 50% chance to hit. So you're probably going to land something as the clan, and the inner sphere you're probably going to land nothing. And your goal as a player, if you want to win at Battletech, is to manipulate that, which obviously is easier to do if you're playing clan mechs, but it's still very possible with inner sphere. You can manipulate terrain. Just be very careful in how you play. Be very strategic. We're going to look at hit locations next and show you, if I roll with this PPC and I hit, how do I figure out where it lands on your mech and what damage is done? This is the hit location chart that we're rolling on. You hear me reference it all throughout the video. You roll 2d6 whenever you hit with a weapon, and this tells you where it's going to land based on your facing and the target mech's facing. If you break through to internal structure, then you may land a critical hit. You roll 2d6, and if you roll an 8 or higher, you're getting at least 1 critical hit, and you can hit something very vital in that location. So that could be pretty cool, especially if you roll a 12. You can actually blow a limb or a head off and just end the fight. That very rarely happens. A 12 happens only 3% of the time, so that's super, super rare. If you get it on the hit location chart, if you roll a 12, then you hit the pilot in the head, and if you do 12 or more damage, the fight's over. You're going to use this chart over and over and over and over. Every time you land a weapon, you're rolling on it, so get familiar with it, have it handy. This is the most important chart in the game, in my opinion. Okay, we're 9 minutes into this video. Dear God, it's time to start playing. Let's jump in. We're going to get into turn 1 initiative and actually play the game. Let's go! Gray for Clan Wolf, red for the Lyran Commonwealth. You can see that the Lyran Commonwealth has won the initiative roll. Let's get into movement. Our clan mech has 16 inches of move, has to spend 2 inches to turn a hex. So he's going to save that, leaving him 14 to run. He can easily make it where he wants to go. So he runs to here and then turns twice to face his opponents. Place a die to indicate that he ran. That's the color of the die. And the number on it tells me the difficulty that we're going to apply to the enemy when they try and shoot him. He'll have a +2 to his own difficulty, and they'll have a +3 to theirs. Let's get them moving. Now they have a 12-inch move. They're also going to have to turn, so that gives them 10 real inches of move. There. Turn 1 is already off to some exciting fireworks. The Banshee we see here fired its PPC. It was the only shot that it took because it wouldn't build up any heat, so it's kind of a free shot. Maybe he'd get lucky. He could only hit on an 11 plus, and he hit. What's more, he delivered a critical, as we're about to see. And the Black Knight fired a bunch of lasers, which is not enough to go over his heat threshold. Both of those large lasers missed, so the Black Knight didn't do anything this turn, but the Banshee got in a really, really solid hit. Our Summoner D, he fired off 2 large lasers and 2 medium lasers. The rest of what he's got is basically defensive in nature. Machine gun's only going to be up close or for infantry, and the anti-missile systems are primarily to stop incoming missiles, which neither of his opponents is using. The reason I did that is if we chose the missile boats and we tried to go against this variant, he would just laugh at them and they wouldn't be able to deliver any damage, and it would be kind of an unfair fight. Our damage looks like this. If we look over here, you can see that there are 10 points of damage right to the chest, which is great. This is really what you want to do to blow up a mech. You got to blow up the center torso. You could also hit the head, but a center torso is a good, strong shot, especially when it's a critical, which you get when you roll 2 1s on the hit location chart. And that hit his fusion engine, which necessitated a piloting check, which he succeeded in, so he didn't fall down. But it's going to mean that he's running hot. That's dumping 5 extra heat around, which is going to be something he has to think about. So instead of having 40 heat, now he's got 35 to work with a turn. So it definitely cost him. On the flip side, he unloaded on this Black Knight here, didn't get any devastating shots, but did score a lot of armor off on both legs and this arm here. Now, blowing off an arm is great, but blowing off a leg is a game ender. So if he can blow off one of these legs, it's all but victory. He can then lead off the other mech and fight it by itself and take care of the Black Knight at his leisure. So that would be really nice if he could finish that damage. But since damage is random, you're just rolling 2d6. You never know where it's going to land. And as you see these sheets progress, you're going to notice, it's getting scored all over the mech. It looks like they're taking damage everywhere. Anyway, that is round 1. Let's go ahead and jump into round 2. Okay, we're starting off turn 2. So our Thor is going to have to get clever here. Fortunately for him, he has jump jets, so we're going to see how these work. And that's going to change the color of the die here. It will change the penalty needed to hit him and for him to hit up to here. And you can land at any facing you want, so he's landing there, giving him full cover from below. And I'm not needing to measure because they're going small distances. 1, 2, 3, 4. And he'll be able to go to there. Got 1, and you've got 1. So round 2 ended with just some armor blasted off the Black Knight, almost nothing to the Thor, and the Banshee pretty much missed everything it fired with because the Thor is maneuvering very carefully and kind of getting those target numbers right in that sweet spot. So the Thor is doing great. The Black Knight hasn't taken any critical wounds, but is taking some damage. Now we're into a new round 3, and the Thor is just falling back and forcing them into a bad position. So you're going to notice that the Banshee doesn't even get to take a shot at all this round, and the Black Knight does, but is only hitting with 1 weapon and only doing a little bit of damage. So the Thor is very, very professionally managing his opponents and sort of singling out the Black Knight for destruction. So in round 3, the Thor took no damage at all, managed to get the difficulties high enough that his opponents are just missing, whereas he hit with all 4 of his lasers and savaged the Black Knight some more. And through this round, you're going to see in round 4, he's gradually maneuvering them again. So for the second round in a row, the Banshee is not going to be able to fire at all, and the Black Knight is going to have to go toe-to-toe, 1v1 at a short distance. And for the 4th time, the Thor is just savaging him with his weaponry. Black Knight has finally fallen at the end of round 5. You can see there was a lot of moving around. You did not see me doing the dice rolls, but basically they were just knocking armor off each other and didn't do anything that really mattered until the end of round 5. And what happened is the Black Knight took 4 lasers a turn, The Thor never missed, not one time. It just kept zut, 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 zut every turn, whereas the Black Knight did get in a few hits, as we'll show you, but not very many, and the Thor is still doing just fine. Meanwhile, the Banshee has been outmaneuvered every turn, so they're not getting a chance to fire, so it's basically been the Black Knight versus the Thor, and the Black Knight lost. But you can see how much effort it took. Every part of the armor is scored, both legs are pretty much out of armor. The entire torso and both arms are pretty much out of armor. And if you look down at the internal structure, by the end of the fight, both arms have been blown off and the left leg has been blown off. When the mech fell, it's only got one leg and is not able to move, and it fell on its face. That mech is out of the combat, and that was effectively the end of it, even though the pilot is still alive. All right, let's jump into round 6 and see how the Banshee does against the Thor. All right, this is the final shot of the Thor, but there's an inaccuracy. The Thor did not get shot in the head. The Thor actually delivered the headshot, but I was so excited after I rolled it that I mismarked it on this sheet. So his head's fine. It took no damage at all. He has all of his armor, all of his internal structure. What he did take, though, was a massive blow to his right torso. So the Banshee delivered a hard hit right at the end there and blew into the torso and messed up the armor. I believe took out the anti-missile system in that location, although I didn't mark it on the sheet. The Thor paid for his victory, but he delivered the headshot, as we'll see. Let's go ahead and look at the Banshee, who did not fare as well. So the Banshee had taken almost no damage. He took a little damage to his torso, and a little damage to his leg, and as an almost brand new mech, just took a headshot and died. He had exactly 12 points and took 12 points and, see you later, dork. That was the end of the fight. That could have happened easily on round 1, but it didn't. You can see how much criticals can swing the battle. It took us 7 rounds to finish this, of them just scoring armor off each other and nuking each other over and over and over, but it was worth it, and hopefully the abbreviated version is useful to sort of teach you how the game goes. I will record a full gameplay video at some point and put it up so you guys can see, but I gotta be real, for a large segment of people that's super boring and people don't want to sit through a 2-hour video, so hopefully this shorter version gives you enough information to get started in playing, and of course we can answer any questions you might have in the comments. So you've seen your first game of Battletech. Where do we go from here? There are a couple of different options. Before we go any further, I want to make sure you know about something called Alpha Strike. So there is a version of the game that is much faster and a lot more like Warhammer Age of Sigmar or Warhammer 40k, in that it plays with larger armies. If we were to do the full battle where you looked at that table and you saw all the tanks and all the mechs and played it out, imagine how long it would take. So look at what we did with 3 mechs. It took 7 rounds for us to play through, and it was just me knowing what I was doing it quickly. Imagine if you had 2 players who didn't really know what they were doing and they had to do this. I mean, this would eat your entire Saturday, and you'd be like 8 p.m. You'd be like, maybe we just call it? It takes forever. Well, Alpha Strike is way faster. If you look at Alpha Strike cards, you can see that the armor and internal structure numbers are way lower. There's no random hit locations. In general, you only have to hit a mech 2 or 3 times to take it out, and it's a much, much faster process. Most of the other rules function exactly the same way for calculating target numbers. Movement's very similar. There are a few differences, but in general, Alpha Strike is a wonderful addition to Battletech. It's fairly new. What you just saw, classic Battletech, is ancient. I played it 30 years ago, and the only thing that's really changed in that 30 years is they added build values. But that's it. It's basically the same game I always played. Alpha Strike is a new version, and I use both. When I'm running a campaign, I run Mech Warrior for the roleplay aspects of it. When people are playing, we're nobles on this planet, and we're going to be defending against the clan, or whatever the roleplay is, I have them make actual characters. That's Mech Warrior. Battletech Classic is if they're going to be small amounts of mechs. So maybe there are 3 people playing in the game, each of them have a mech, and they're going against 3 other mechs or 4 other mechs. I might do Battletech Classic. That's going to be a long fight, but it can be a lot of fun to play it out and actually force people to work for it. If it's going to be 12 mechs on 12 mechs, a company on a company, that's just too much, and Alpha Strike is the way to go. You can play it much, much faster. The games are, I love how fast they are, and they have more options. There are battlefield objectives and things of that nature. So again, similar to Warhammer, it's a lot of fun. So I'd encourage you to check out Alpha Strike. If there's demand, I'd be happy to make a video for it in addition to this one to show you what's different about Alpha Strike and why you might want that. Assuming you want to stick with Battletech Classic, my advice to you is to play a game. And if you've bought the base set, you have enough mechs to do that on your own. You don't need anybody else in your garage. If you have a second person, wonderful. It's a lot more fun. They play the other side. But if not, you can just set up the hex maps that came in the box. And now that you've seen how the rules work, try running through a couple turns. See how it works. There are a billion things we didn't cover. We didn't work too much on heat. We didn't spend any time talking about things like missiles. Missiles land in clusters, and we didn't do any of that stuff because there was no missiles involved in this combat. There are other weapons that we didn't touch as well, and other technologies we didn't touch. So there's a lot to learn about Battletech, and the universe is deep. If you look at that shelf up there, most of the top shelf is Battletech books, either setting or rule sets that will tell you how to do different things with, drop ships and aerospace fighters and infantry and tanks. All of those have rules. All of those are present. And when you know it all and have it all, if you love the hobby like I do, it's a ton of fun, especially if you're doing the mech warrior roleplay where it's not just mechs blowing each other up. There's a reason to it where you're like, okay, this is my planet and it's been invaded and I'm having to rally defenses and it's my responsibility because I am the ancestral governor of this land. You really can do a lot with this game. It's a ton of fun. And I gotta be honest, Battletech is not the most popular role-playing game. It doesn't have magic. Its draw is not the same as, say, Warhammer 40K or Dungeons & Dragons. It's not nearly as big an IP in that regard. But if you're into it, man, if you've played some of those video games, if you've read some of the novels, it can be so much fun, and it's not that hard to persuade your group to play. So again, I would encourage you in the comments, ask away, ask for anything you need to know about the game, any additional resources, and I'll see if I can't provide that. My goal is to grow this playlist for Battletech into one where you have everything you need to run a campaign without having to go anywhere else. And this is supposed to be the cornerstone in the sense that after you've watched this, you should feel like you could take the basic box set, sit down, and maybe play some. I want you to have that feeling, and if I succeeded, you do, and hopefully we can take it from there and you can get a little bit more into it. On the horizon, outside of Battletech, you'll see me working on Shadowrun videos very, very soon. That'll be the next project that I tackle on this channel, and it's likely to have a lot more videos because there's a lot more lore there to tackle, and it's a deeper pool for me to draw from. Hopefully this video is of use to you. I'm going to watch the comments and see what I can do to help you guys. Anyway, in the meantime, I'm going to get back to the gaming, and I will see you guys in the next video. If you got something out of this video and would like to support the channel, I am a science fiction and fantasy author, and there are links to my books in the comments. Just pick something up. It's on Audible too if you like that. Thank you.